Good morning. Translation. We are running a translation. Are you okay, gentlemen? Can you hear the translation on the English channel? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first panel dedicated to officers who actually hold operational responsibilities in domains of conflictuality. The first roundtable is dedicated to the air and space power, the third dimension on the what is a conflictuality situation which is growing around us, and what does it mean for commanding officers to run operations and to plan, especially to plan possible air warfare. What does it mean specifically for such operational officers? I have with me Major General Osama Abbas Soliman Abdel Maksud, who is a pilot of Apache helicopter, who is commander of the 119th Air Division in the Egyptian Air Force. Then, next to him, Major General Andrea Argeri, former F-16 pilot, who is the Major General of the Italian Air and Space Force Air Command. Next to him, Major General Panagiotis Georgakopoulos, who is director of the Armament Programming Direction of the Armament Program branch of the Hellenic Air Space Force. And last but not least, to my right, Major General Philippe Morales, who is the Major of the French Air and Space Force. One Egyptian, one Italian, one Greek, one French, and a broad panel of operational situations, strategic situations, and situations in terms of air security and combat. And those are different perspectives.
To you, General Osama Abbas, just to tell us how would you see the Air Force issue for your country?
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you and thank City of Toulon and all organizers of having me here and have the opportunity to have sit here with these distinguished men and discuss our Mediterranean. So I'll start first with little words about the challenges we meet or we have in Mediterranean area as we see in Egyptian Air Force, and our effort in Egypt to encounter these challenges. Throughout history, the Mediterranean Sea has played a vital role in Egypt's history and the economy. Egypt, with its extensive coastline along the Mediterranean Sea, faces a unique set of challenges in the Mediterranean region. These challenges encompass environmental, political, economic, and security issues that require strategic planning and international cooperation. These challenges can be described as follow: climate change, environmental pollution, illegal migration, arms and drug trafficking, and the struggle for natural resources. How the Egyptian Air Force is utilized to secure the Mediterranean Sea. First, combating smuggling and unauthorized immigration. The Egyptian Air Force plays a vital role in monitoring the country's maritime and land borders, particularly in combating smuggling and unauthorized immigration. These efforts are essential for national security, safeguarding borders, and countering organized crime. The Egyptian Air Force utilized aircraft and advanced technology for monitoring both maritime and land borders. This includes aerial reconnaissance and continuous aerial surveillance to track unauthorized activities, such as smuggling across the borders. Upon detecting suspicious activity or potential smuggling, the Egyptian Air Force plays a critical role in precise targeting and quick response. Rapid interventions are carried out to prevent smuggling and unauthorized immigration attempts. The Air Force collaborates closely with ground and maritime forces to achieve effective coordination and cooperation in anti-smuggling and anti-immigration efforts. This collaboration enhances the ability to achieve better results. The Egyptian military invests in advanced technology to enhance surveillance capability and detect smuggling and unauthorized immigration activities. This includes the use of radar systems and remote sensing technology. Search and rescue operations in Mediterranean. Air Force plays a crucial role in search and rescue operations in the Mediterranean Sea, historic and strategical significant region. The role is vital for saving lives and protecting both people and assets at sea. By monitoring and rapid response, by guiding boats and rescue teams, by utilizing advanced technology and collaboration with maritime rescue organizations, and enhancing training and preparedness. Safeguarding the country's economic interest in the Mediterranean Sea, protecting energy resources. Egypt has significant energy resources, including oil and natural gas reserves in the Mediterranean. These resources are critical for the country's energy security and economic stability. The Egyptian Air Force conducts regular patrols and surveillance missions to deter potential threats to offshore energy infrastructure, ensuring uninterrupted production and export. Also securing maritime trade routes. The Mediterranean Sea is a major route for international maritime trade, and Egypt's Suez Canal is a vital passage connecting Europe and Asia. The EAF, or Egyptian Air Force aerial surveillance, are present along the coast help secure these maritime trade routes, preventing piracy and safeguarding the free flow of goods. Responding to environmental threats, the Mediterranean faces environmental challenges such as oil spills and pollution. The EAF rapid response capabilities are crucial in containing and mitigating the impact of such incidents, protecting marine ecosystems and preserving coastal areas. Counter-terrorism and border security. Egypt was facing security threats in its Sinai Peninsula and along the Mediterranean coastline. The EAF conducts surveillance and counter-terrorism operations to maintain stability in this area, which is vital for economic activities and investment in the region. The Egyptian Air Force is a crucial component of Egypt's effort to protect its economic interest in the Mediterranean by securing energy resources, trade routes, fisheries, and responding to environmental threats. The Egyptian Air Force plays a multifaceted role in ensuring the stability and the prosperity of the country's Mediterranean region. Its continued vigilance and capabilities will remain essential as Egypt seeks to harness the economic potential of this strategically important sea. And that's all.
Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's a great honor and privilege to be part of this prestigious panel and have a chance to talk about two things: the thing that we love, which is the job that we do, being in the Air Force and being aviators, and the Mediterranean, which is the geographic, and not only the geographic, the social space that we all live in. So great opportunity, and my commendation for the great effort of putting this together. We already saw in the first panel that all the most important themes were pretty much laid on the table in a very frank and direct way, which is, I guess, the objective. So thank you, and thank you for the FMS for the invitation. I think we will hear a lot about, and we already heard perfectly outlined by my Egyptian colleague, what are the typical roles, the typical challenges, and typical facets of air and space power employment, even in this particular geographic context, which is the Mediterranean. As the Italian Air Force, we are, and Italian defense at a larger dimension, we obviously, and with no doubt, are privileged because of our geographical position. We stand right in the middle, north and south, east and west. The typical historical characteristics of air power are reach, speed, and I can tell you by day-to-day exercises that we perform, we reach either all the way to the east, Cyprus. We train with our Greek colleagues, and to the west as well, starting most of the time from our home bases. We are in the process, and we worked in the past with our Egyptian colleagues as well. And that again, I guess, explains a lot about the commonality of the coastal bordering states. So we will hear a lot, I guess, in the next couple of days about the typical characteristics of the coastal states facing the Mediterranean. Another thing I think that we will hear a lot is the states here represented that are not coastal states, but are deeply influenced by what happens in the Mediterranean and through the Mediterranean and above the Mediterranean. And all these three geographical spaces are spaces where the Air Force has relevant characteristics to be employed and to make a difference for security and for the defense of our people. So what are then, I think it is important to realize, though, that apart from geographical characteristics and the adaptation of our force structure for that, it's not just bidimensional. It's not just 2D. There is a third dimension, which is the one where we typically employ our assets, be it reconnaissance assets, search and rescue, patrol, air defense. But there is also a social and contemporary. I think we already touched the fact about the conflicts that are ongoing in and around the Mediterranean. So it's a geographical space, but it's also a social and contemporary. And all of this is deeply immersed in the information environment that we briefly touched upon in the previous panel. Again, when we talk about information, we have to realize that the old tenet about air power and air domain, or the domain of the air and the control of the air, now have to be coupled with the reality. And the reality is data and information. So the adaptation that was already ongoing and we are working on actively to remain at the leading edge in technology is to enable our people, our airmen, to work within a very congested information space. It's not just the technology, I think, it's also the mindset, which is a good opportunity for me to thank you for also having a lot of young people in the audience, because they are the future. We're looking at them, we're talking to them, they are our future. Even for us, as an Italian Air Force, we are celebrating this year 100 years of history, and it gives us a great chance to rediscover our history, but at the same time looking at the next 100 years, and the next 100 years are theirs, are the young people. I think I will stop here because we may get the chance to talk about some more technical and operational aspects in the follow-up questions. Thank you.
General Georgakopoulos, The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, bonjour, good morning. I'm Major General Panagiotis Georgakopoulos, Director of the Defense Policy and Acquisition Branch of the Hellenic Air Force. It is an honor for me to address my humble thoughts with such an esteemed audience concerning the topic air and space power application in the Mediterranean area. Over the past 3 decades, aerospace power has come to play an increasingly important role in national security, international relations, and warfare. Air and space power, the ability of a nation to assert its will by projecting military power in, through, and from the air and space domain, has demonstrated its dramatic impact in shaping both war and crisis outcomes. Military commanders who have witnessed recent warfare firsthand realize that successful operations are virtually impossible without the extensive employment of air and space power. Diplomats who have been engaged in the resolution of violent conflicts recognize that the threat and actual use of air power offer considerable advantages in negotiations. Air and space power provide the critical control of the air and the assured access to space-based capabilities that is needed to maintain our security, stability, and prosperity. The air and space forces are the first responders in facing up hostility and aggression, and also provide the essential freedom of maneuver which the other branches of the armed forces require to succeed. It may not always be the principal player, but for sure it enables all others in force employment, either as a factor of kinetic effect or as a multi-component enabler of ground and naval forces. Air and space power, under the right circumstances, can be independently decisive or critical in determining outcomes of regional conflicts. The Mediterranean region. The Mediterranean region is re-emerging as a focus of geopolitical interest. It is among the most military loaded in the world. Its position connecting the oil-rich Persian Gulf with big energy and lack of energy consumers, the fact that it's the home to the 3 monotheistic religions, and the recent discovery of hydrocarbon reserves in the Oriental Basin produce an unstable environment with various security challenges. Many are the actors becoming increasingly involved and seeking to gain further influence and produce their desired outcome. The Syrian and Libyan armed conflicts, the current Israeli operation in Gaza, the fact of the existing terrorism, extremism, illegal migration, human trafficking, and security challenges that are destabilizing the region. In this volatile and complex security environment, there is a need for a holistic situational awareness and a rapid decision-making based on adequate resources and well-trained and reactive force projection capabilities. This solution can only be provided effectively and efficiently by air and space power. The basic characteristics of air and space power are the exploitation of height, speed, reach, agility, ubiquity, and concertation, which facilitate the core roles of the air power: control of the air, attack, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, air mobility, and command and control. First of all, control of the air. Securing and maintaining control of the air remains the raison d'etre of any combatant air force. Although after almost 2 decades of ongoing unconventional wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and the fight against ISIS, the focus on controlling the air has declined because the opponents have little or no capacity to challenge allied forces in the air. This mission is still imperative. Control of the air underpins all air operations because it secures freedom of action in the air domain, permanently protects the national territory from any threat from the air, limiting or denying its use by any adversary while protecting our vital interests. The ability to quickly achieve air superiority on the Mediterranean area offers a valuable asymmetric sanctuary to be exploited for various purposes and provides new levels of protection from ground and naval forces, lines of supply, and logistic sites. ISR. Aerial reconnaissance was the first role of military aviation. What is now labeled ASR remains crucial both to military commanders and also to policymakers and diplomats. Space assets and unmanned aircraft have supplemented classical manned ISR aircraft and non-traditional ISR aircraft over the last decades. Collectively, air and space ISR have become so effective that no adversary can operate in keeping height. Similarly, for aircraft developments, air forces are replacing the vulnerable unmanned ISR aircraft designed for asymmetric warfare with more robust stealth aircraft that perform effectively in both permissive and hostile environments. The need for integration of systems in modern airborne ISR assets is obvious and essential, but meaning it is challenging for regional and international cooperation and coalition warfare because the system integration presents great challenges to intelligence sharing and operational integration. Attack. Offensive air operations today is very different in contrast to the massive destruction by air attacks in the total wars of the 20th century. This is the result both of the fact that air power in massive form is very expensive, but also the capabilities of new technologies such as stealth, improved sensors, UAVs, data links, precision weapon combined with the new C2 processes and targeting philosophies. Rapid diffusion of accurate target information enhances the precision of airstrikes and reduces the response times, enabling effective engagement of small and mobile targets. In addition, they provide new options for coercive diplomacy and even enable targeting of individual terrorist leaders. Importantly, these developments have resulted in a significant reduction of risk for friendly ground troops as well as for civilians. As a result, air power can increase its political and military utility in a wider variety of operations. Air mobility. The speed and range of air power offers the ability to create rapid strategic influence in support of national objectives or in support of allies, such as the ability to deploy, sustain, and recover personnel and equipment quickly, often over significant distance, or delivering humanitarian due to a natural disaster. The right quality of cargo aircraft in adequate quantity provides optimal air mobility capabilities that shape a range of access in the regional level. Command and control. Command and control envelopes all four air power roles and supported by a robust command, control, communication, computers, and information system is essential for the effective delivery of air power. Centralized control and decentralized execution is Hellenic Air Force preferred method for command and control, a method that is favorable between most of the air forces, as it enables tactical flexibility, responsiveness, surveyability, sustainability, interoperability, while ensuring unity of effort at the operational level. Following the post-Cold War era, the regions of the Southeastern Europe and the Middle East have faced multiple crises and have been the theater of competitions and conflicts. Air and space power can apply forces that instantly and constantly present, invisible from any threat, operationally capable of enforcing the necessary security environment in the field of commercial and energy domains within the Mediterranean area. The presence of multiple state and non-state actors in the Mediterranean region, the global interconnection leading to the evolution of emerging threats require the building of strong partnerships between the states involved. Envisioning such cooperation involves fostering collaborative efforts to enhance collective security and address shared concerns. Information sharing, standardization of equipment, procedures and terminology, technology sharing, research and development cooperation, joint training and exercise, alliance and coalition building, and regional security arrangements are some of the means to create synergistic effects and address effectively the evolving security challenges and enhance stability in the Mediterranean. For the regional cooperation to be effective, it requires trust, mutual respect, and commitment to upholding the rule of law, international norms, and respect for the sovereignty of countries within the region through sustained diplomatic efforts. Furthermore, cooperation in the air and space domain often goes hand in hand with broader efforts to maintain international peace and security, making it an integral part of global security architecture. Ideas do matter. Fifth-generation airborne platforms based on stealth technology, advanced sensors, data fusion and networking, advanced electronic warfare capabilities, collaborative combat aircraft, etc., must be matched by fifth-generation organizational adaptation and fifth-generation strategic thinking. Equally important is the critical and radical foundation for our operations, especially when dealing with the implication of the fourth industrial revolution, the robotization, in the form of remotely piloted vehicles and autonomous systems. The future of the air and space power lies in mastering the conceptual and moral high ground in addition to its underlying algorithms. The future of air and space power also depends on finding and keeping the right people. To recruit and retain the best and the brightest must be a continuous cycle. Conclusion. The Hellenic Air Force, like other military organizations, continues to adapt to regional and global security challenges, to maintain deterrence against potential adversaries and keep stability in the region. The right level of technology and the combination of means in adequate numbers provide our policymakers with the needed operational capabilities and a range of effects at the political, strategic, and tactical level. Air and space power offers to our countries, policymakers, an agile, timely, and focused capability that can be highly effective in resolving or averting a developing crisis in the Mediterranean region. It can also potentially negate the requirement to deploy a larger force over a broader timescale by land or sea. By minimizing or removing the requirement of land forces, air and space power can make it easier to commit militarity in politically challenging circumstances. Its speed, mobility, and precision are combined to make it an attractive element of the military instrument of national power. In conclusion, air and space power in the Mediterranean region is essential for maintaining regional security, stability, peace, and prosperity. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, General. Mon général.
First of all, thank you for this invite, for these dialogues.
To beat friends from allied air forces, and we are used training together all year long. So thank you. Sans surprise, je vais reprendre ce qui a déjà été.
I will pick up on what was already said on the vision of the air and space forces. I'll develop on 3 points: 1 on geography, 2 on the ongoing threats, and 3 on what the air and space forces do. So, geography, I'm not going to go back on this multi-millenary crossroad, cultural, political aspects, but for military, this region is centered on the sea, but it brings together 21 countries around the Mediterranean basin. So we are engaged in depth in the repairing countries. I will describe by flight times rather than by distances. From France to the Near East, it's 5 or 6 hour flights. Even if historically it was exploited by sea vessels, we find all the international navies. We see that the Air Force can be a very important strategic force. So this is how a pilot sees the context. So the threats and stakes and challenges, it's a region that concentrates a lot of threats, a lot of stakes for France. Of course, we have the geopolitical tensions we see with the recent events and the all the powers present in the region. There is the securization of legal flows and air traffic, the fight against illegal trafficking and terrorism that we find a bit everywhere, and that is today in all the spheres. So what can the Air Force bring? Air power. It has assets, but drawbacks also. The assets are the aerial vector. There was one operation where some radar planes, fighters, flew from the metropolis to the eastern Mediterranean. So we are very reactive, and we can access in record time to the whole zone. And also it is very, very multi-service. It can do surveillance work and observe some large zones. And the space means enabled to do more and more things to that effect. The Air Force and Space Forces can intervene on tension areas, can bring some evacuation means also. The drawbacks is we can't stay in permanence, in alert, so it involves that even if from the capital we can do a lot of things, it's a big maneuver, and it involves having some different points, relays around the Mediterranean. But to show that it's not only words, there are regular actions that are undertaken within the scope of operations. The Air Force and the Shamal operation as a base in Jordan, and we operate regularly over the Mediterranean. We also are active in Eastern Mediterranean for the Onomia action with the National Navy. A lot of preparation exercises, operational exercises. I'm thinking of the exercise we did between Corsica and Sardinia. And this is a big training area. We carry out a lot of expertise exercises there in Spain also, and more we do rapid deployment exercise in the Moran in France, the quick implementation of the Air Force and Space Forces, where we try to deploy very rapidly with a very small logistic footprint. And a lot of partnerships also within NATO, but also partnerships in the scope of Rafale exports. I'm thinking of the Egyptian Air Force, for example, and radar exchange capacities, also exchanges to be able to anticipate all threats and better control what's happening over the national airspace. So this is roughly the vision of a pilot on a maritime region. Thank you. So I'm talking about the Rafale partnership here. I have a question on the conflictuality.
To help you, in the region, global region, we have 2 wars going on. One in Ukraine, one in Palestine. They are completely different in terms of air combat and air warfare. In my view, I'm not a pilot, but on the Israel-Hamas war, it's I would say a classical asymmetric war without any air opposition, air defense, but a real question about the collateral damage, which are one of the key points when you are using the Air Force, and a connection with the information war, and you know that it's key, very important for this war. And the other one is the Ukraine war, which is completely different and which represents a high intensity war with, in this case, a real opposition and a difficulty to obtain the air dominance. And I guess that's a big issue for air forces. It's kind of peer-to-peer conflict, and so completely different from the first one. What is your analysis of these 2 operational situations, military speaking, I guess, underline, And what are the consequences when you are designing the Air Force for the future? And do you think that your Air Force, the missions of your Air Force are going to change in the future because of this technical and operational change? We can maybe start on the other way around, and on commencer par vous, mon général.
So we're going to start with you, General. Thank you, Admiral. The question is not easy. In fact, these two conflicts are quite complementary. I'd like to go over on a asymmetric conflict. In the end, it's not less dangerous or easier to win. It's a confrontation between a regular army and armed fighters, but you avoid direct fighting and use different tactics. So there's an art in this kind of warfare. France was faced with this kind of operation, notably in Afghanistan and more recently in Sahel. And it represents essentially all our operations since the end of the last World War II. So what's interesting in this asymmetric conflict is the airspace is not contested. You can unroll your missions without any hindrances, which enables to have more precision, less time pressure. And so you have the capacity to develop intelligence, a very precise intelligence. And it's extremely important because it should enable to detect an enemy that is quite invisible. And so we saw with Sahel, with the operation in Sahel, it's a true game changer with the onset of the Ripper, which chain, permanence on flight, precise observations, and very precise strikes, surgical strikes, we say, which are made easier since the Ripper can fly over the area for several hours. And so I'd like to stop the comparison here with the Gaza Strip, because in Sahel there's absolutely not the same population density than the Gaza Strip. So the challenges are totally different. But we see it's essential to be able to identify, discriminate the targets, and find the right opportunity to strike while minimizing collateral damages. So there's real intense work in intelligence, cross-cutting intelligence information, very important because it enables to make progress on what we consider a symmetric conflict like in Ukraine. So a high-intensity conflict, we see Ukraine and Russia that are faced with a position war. So there's no aerial superiority there. None of the fighters have been able to do this because there's a very strong, powerful defense systems. And we think also there was a bad integration between the land and air systems to multiply the strengths of both sectors and the offensive actions. So this high-intensity conflict, when you look at, and we see this in our exercises, there's an offensive side, so you need to be able to pierce the land-air defenses and concentrating on the suppression of enemy air defense, which involves special tactics, special equipment, special armament, and also you have to maintain this superiority and that's what you do when you attack the command system, enemy command systems. And there's also the other aspect: when you're in symmetric conflict, you need to be able to defend yourself. And so that's where we see the renewable, the ground-air missiles that we had in France a bit left aside. So this is how we see both conflicts, the parallels, how they're both complementary, and how each conflict helps us to improve. Thank you, General. General Chapopoulos.
I want just to add a little more things because my colleague, I thought that has a holistic said about this question. Well, in my Air Force, we do not train about a low conflict like Gaza. And Gaza is a special occasion because there is an urban place. And that needs a lot of and accurate information for collateral damage. It's again very sensitive in the psychological war and the information war. So we think that our environment is far away from a conflict like that. For Ukrainian war, it's a conventional war, but because nobody has by now air superiority, we see that almost after 2 years, there is a little progression from both sides. And this is for many different reasons. The very good defense of surface-air missiles and integrated systems of the Russians, and not the fleet of aircrafts of the Ukrainian. My country, because of having these two different wars and just having all this lesson learned by now, we think that we are in the good path because our assets, modernized F-16s, Rafales, sophisticated systems, missiles, a lot of surface-air missiles. I think that we are well prepared for a conventional war and easy to gain in our region the air superiority that we want to do. But the Gaza situation is a totally different thing. Even our doctrines are not very sophisticated and focused in that part of warfare. So we are looking more in deeply. Of course, with NATO and European colleagues to this kind of wars. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General Algeri.
Yes, I will, since we already commented a lot, and I think we already outlined many of the common facts and the complementarity from an airman's perspective of the two conflicts. It's very sensitive, and I think it's very early also to analyze because we don't really know all that we need to know, and we'll probably learn a lot more what happens, especially in Gaza in the future months and years. I will start with three things that apparently are not connected with this by telling what we do as the Italian Air Force while this is all happening, and what we did. On February 22nd last year, we were flying air defense mission for NATO in Romania. All of a sudden, from what used to be a commitment that the Italian Air Force did, we're one of the largest contributors to NATO as a whole and to the air policing mission, being the only state that does air policing for NATO throughout the year. All of a sudden, our crews were faced with a totally different environment. A few nautical miles from them, a real conflict happened. And we doubled, in a matter of days, we doubled the number of platforms, jets that were flying the air defense mission for NATO over Romania. At the same time, and we're still doing that, albeit in Poland and Lithuania right now. At the same time, on February 22nd, we were flying, and this actually answers, or maybe briefly answers, one of the questions that I'm reading on the screen. We were flying patrols, maritime surveillance for all over the southern part of the Mediterranean for the migration monitoring and overall security monitoring with our predators. And we do that day in, day out. At the same time, and again, talking about the Mediterranean, one of our officers is leading a cooperation mission in Libya. We take turns with the Italian Army and the Navy for security cooperation in order to try and bring a piece of stability in that context as well. At the same time, we are flying Predators, tankers, and Typhoons for the recce mission from Kuwait all over Iraq, and we've done it for almost the last 20 years. Before was right after the Iraqi conflict, and in the last 8 years for the anti-Daesh or Operation Inherent Resolve, so the fight against ISIS, which we tend to forget, but ISIS was pretty much ruling a huge piece of land between Iraq and Syria just a few years ago. And all this happens while we have major conflicts that you outlined. What is the so what in this regarding the questions, regarding the Ukraine and regarding Gaza? Well, first of all, we talked about air superiority. I'll come back to that. What enabled us and the Air Force here represented to, in a matter of days, I like the pilot talking about flight hours, but also in a matter of days, to bring together hundreds of fighter planes from the Baltic to the Black Sea, all along the eastern border, is standards. We have been exercising standards, and I think this answers another of the questions. We have been exercising together within NATO for the last almost 75 years. You don't, things like what happened last March don't happen by chance. It takes effort, it takes training, it takes all the things that we mentioned about cooperation and exercising together. It takes standards. Having NATO standards, a basic commonality for command and control, for communications, for the language that we use, and constantly exercising it day in, day out, is what brings together such a force like that under the same coordination of NATO, being able to be credible, relevant, present, and in big numbers when and where is needed. This is what the air power brings to the table. And that happened last year in a matter of days. And so standards is one enabler. The other one is readiness. Readiness does come at a cost. As we speak, our crews, not only our crews, naval crews, and even the land people, have a degree of ready forces, trained, equipped, and available to be employed when and where needed. That does come at a cost. You don't get that, you don't go out and buy readiness on the market. You need to work for it constantly, and we've done it, and I think it pays a lot of dividends. It's something that you don't see. It's like air. You don't realize you need air until you can't breathe anymore, and that is the challenge about talking about security to the average man in the street. It's very difficult until you actually need it. And when you need it, you need people that have been trained for years and are able to bring it, to bring power to the table when needed. For the air superiority piece, and then connecting to the future. Ukraine is, and we will study the Ukrainian conflict for decades, probably. But there is something that is a lesson that we keep learning or relearning, at least as aviators, but I think it's common to all defense. The air superiority mission is critical to achieving success in modern warfare. I think I cannot synthesize this more. We have seen it in the last 30 years, at least in the conflicts that the West fought in. And yet again, Ukraine is showing us anyone who doubts the need for air superiority can see what happens when neither side controls the sky, and you have to revert to defense, to trench warfare, which is brutal. It's brutal on the individual, it's brutal on the civilian population. So that's what air superiority gives you. I like to quote army generals when I talk about air superiority, and if you allow me a couple of minutes more for this, and I'm getting close to finish. Field Marshal Montgomery, British general, World War II. If we lose the war in the air, we lose the war, and we lose it quickly. And Erwin Rommel, German, one of the most famous and important generals, he envisioned that the future battle on the ground will be preceded by battle in the air. And we have seen it, we train for it, we constantly work for it with our colleagues in the Army and Navy, and now in space and cyber. And finally, Heinz Guderian, the theorist of the employment of armor, is the first one that in the 30s came up with the idea of success in the air exploited for ground warfare and maneuver, which in turn will allow more air to be deployed in protection of the troops. There used to be a quote around the United States Air Force that said that no Western soldier was killed by enemy air since 1953, since the Korean War. Now, obviously, if we look at Gaza, if you look at the anti-Daesh operations, it's slightly different. There are commonalities like were outlined before. But I think this is what we can look at and what we can reason about when we talk about air superiority. Obviously, in Gaza is a fight that I think we already fought from a conceptual perspective in the Daesh conflict. Similar challenges with the added complexity of the urban environment, but the challenges are similar when you fight an irregular enemy. I think I will stop here. Hopefully, I didn't eat too much of the time for my colleague.
Thank you, General. General Abbas?
Thank you. Actually, my colleagues leave me nothing to add here about this contest. But I might add is, because of Gaza is very close to Egypt, actually it's on the borderline with Egypt. So Gaza now is facing a very tragic circumstances because of they has no entrance or no port to transfer the humanitarian aids, except in Rafah, which is a port between Egypt and Palestine from Gaza side. And also, of course, it's urban area, so a lot of schools, a lot of hospitals have been damaged. So they are facing very hard time. So both Gaza, Hamas war now and Ukrainian war, they are both aggressions. They are both have to stop. Aggression never ended with anything on ground. So we both need both conflicts to stop and to reveal peace in both areas. That's all I'm gonna add.
Thank you very much. You want to add something? No. I have a question which can encompass quite a lot of the questions there. Technological and operational question mixed. But the two tools which are now on the table and used in connection with Air Force, and the articulation between the Air Force and these tools are key to win the war, is the drones, UAVs, and the space, either outer space or stratospheric space. How does it change the way you are doing your job? How do you envisage, you use it today, and you envisage to do it in later? And maybe could raise a question about the SCAF, and which has been raised here, or the next generation of aircraft. How will they interact with these tools? So who wants to take the floor for the first?
Ok, je commence. D'abord, pour les drones,
Concerning drones, I'll talk about the large drones, not the small ones. For me, a mini drone, you know, except a small ammunition, is more a missile than a drone per se. In drones, we know fairly well the drones like the Reaper, and, you know, persistent and discretion, reactivity, firing power. There is this drone, and it is easy, especially in asymmetric fight. And there is what we are inventing now, or discovering for the SCAF, which will be a remote carrier, you know, a companion drone to replace, to help the sort of co-pilot. So we're learning, actually, the SCAF program is an iterative program with long periods to study new concept, and we are in the SCAF. We are trying to understand and do the air campaign of the future. It will be a mix of manned aircraft and unmanned aircraft, and the unmanned aircraft will go in the most dangerous, deepest zone inside the enemy territory. I cannot tell you how many manned or unmanned aircraft there will be, but then what is at stake there behind this is everything that is the interconnection. So we can see aspects now where we want to make sure that all those aircrafts, manned or unmanned, have to be interconnected and should be able to exchange data, but not too much, otherwise there will be a kind of a saturation of the electromagnetic space. So we think about AI, we have to sort, do a pre-analysis, to identify, to do data segregation. So the arrival of the drones will change entirely the configuration of air campaign or the air combat, and there will be impact in technologies which were connects and which are now becoming principal technologies with the interconnections, and they make it possible to go much further in the acceleration of the observation, orientation, decision-making. While everybody is directly connected, we can run the loop more and more, increasingly faster. So one word about space. Well, there is the exo-atmospheric space and everything that is between 20 and 100 kilometers in altitude. We saw it with the Chinese balloon. All of a sudden, well, it's interesting because not enough air for an aircraft to hold there, but we can still do things there. So we are studying, well, you have to identify, detect, and then to be able to react accordingly, and then know how to use. So we are considering constellation of balloons or drones with long span, very light, which could be like satellite constellation, but at low cost. And of course, space, as we see always, as what do we get space for? To improve the maritime or land actions, you know, image, information, intelligence, communication. But again, you know, can the other environment provide to the air and space? You know, but in the case of Air Force, do we have to bomb the launching station or the satellite guiding station, do jamming to the benefit of space? Well, warfare, this is how the space equation is taken into account, drone and space, in the evolution of the air concept. Thank you, General.
Questions, UAVs, space, General?
Well, about space, Hellenic Air Force use space for intelligence, information, and communication. About the UAVs, they are the big ones and the very small. About the big ones in peacetime, we use for intelligence and reconnaissance. But we all know that when the hostile environment is very capable, then all these UAVs are very vulnerable. So after the peacetime, at wartime, I think that sophisticated air defense, all these assets will shoot down at the first towers. So it's very important to see the smallest UAVs that they can change everything as we can see nowadays. The answer to that is very flexible capabilities of projection your forces. You have a lot of Air Force bases remoted. You have to hide everything and so on. This is in tactical environment and level, but of course it gives a lot of solutions, as we can see in the last conflict at Ukrainian. Everything is very complex, and in the future we will see that the way of the Air Forces will operate will change a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gerald?
Yes, I think I'll go back, having commanded a repair unit for a couple of years, talking about drones and the future, like the sixth generation. Let's call it sixth generation, so we don't address a specific platform. Well, it's obviously, but I'll try to attack it from a different angle, because we've been talking a lot about the technology, we've been talking a lot about hardware. And obviously, it's crucial to constantly push for state-of-the-art. It links back to being able to gain and maintain air dominance, and also it links back to what we said at the beginning, the information dominance. So it is obvious that the drones, with their persistence, are actually filling a gap that has been historical in the application of air power, which is persistence. Normally, we can go very fast and reach within flight hours every angle of the Mediterranean, and within days, every angle of the globe, but persistence has always been our limitation. So to the wider audience, what do drones bring to the table? They bring persistence. Persistence coupled with technology gives us a tool to enhance our capability of dominate the information space, which is crucial in nowadays warfare, be it the high-end or the irregular. It doesn't matter. It's across the table. But let me focus, just to say something different, let us focus on the human dimension as well. The training that we need, the airmen of the future, looking again at the young people, because we are already employing, as a credible and modern Air Force like we are, we're employing the fifth generation. We've been employing it for 6 or 7 years. So we were the first in NATO to actually sit combat air patrols with fifth gen F-35s. How do you work? I think our Greek colleague mentioned that you have to enable your whole force to elevate it to think in fifth generation, or nowadays start to think in sixth generation terms. It's not just the platform. It goes back to the human being and how you train, starting from the academies and starting from the schools, and then the exercises. For example, live, virtual, and constructive. How do we create the environment, and we're actively working on it, and in certain aspect we are doing, as we speak, training that couples a synthetic environment with synthetic entities, with real platforms and simulators, all immersed in the same scenario. That is a direction that we are trying to follow in order to prepare our people to better act and work in this very, very complex and contested environment. A couple of words about space. Space is the natural expansion of the classical air domain. It is seamless. Regardless of the physical or the theoretical borders, we as an Air Force, when we look at the space, we see something that we have to monitor. The Chinese balloon was mentioned. The activities are scaling up, both in altitude, going into the stratosphere, and in space. So it's a space that we need to defend. it is obvious that even NATO and all our air forces started to create concepts, doctrine, commands like Space Command. So it's a space that we need to defend, and we don't do it alone. Only a few people can do it alone. So it brings me back to the cooperation piece. For example, in space, the cooperation, we have a very active cooperation with France and with other partners around the globe, especially for monitoring, so space situational awareness, which is crucial to understand what goes through and may or may not impact our citizens on the ground or our assets in the air. So cooperation and being there to be able to defend our assets and our people.
Thank you, General. General Abbas, do you want to?
Thank you, sir. As you know, we have a terrorism in Sinai Peninsula for maybe starting in 2013, and unmanned air vehicle plays a very, very important role in that in defeating terrorism. They can patrol all the areas all night long at low cost, just monitoring and guiding another aircraft to the position of wherever the terrorists are. Also, we have, as my French general said before, MUMT, or the phrase stands for manned-unmanned teaming between the manned aircrafts and unmanned air vehicle. We paid attention to that, and we are taking steps forward to implement that in that direction. Concerning space, we also started to take some steps in that direction or in that dimension. Not big steps, maybe, but we started. We hope we can add space as a command, maybe to the Air Force or separate command. But we are at least took first steps, and we are moving in that direction.
Thank you. So maybe we can switch to the question. As you have pilot, maybe you can read these screens. I can't it, but they are there. There are questions specifically, it's not surprising, about the two countries which are in the Eastern Med. One about the Aegean Sea and the tension between Greece and Turkey on the Aegean airspace. Do you want to say something on that issue? Specifically, there are questions about who has the air superiority. Does the Rafale give you a superiority, and what kind of superiority does that give? Does that raise specific issues? How is the level of tension? Is it rising right now or decreasing compared to the years before? Or something else on this specific issue which is key for your country?
Well, first of all, about air superiority. The theater of Aegean historically was a sea that belongs to Greek people. As we know, Aegean Sea is an archipelagos, like Italians first of us give the name of Aegean Sea. It has numerous of islands, small, bigger, and some big like Crete, for example. The problem is that our neighbors sometimes do not respect the international law and do not respect the laws of ICAO for navigation and so on. There are a lot of things that every day they are doing that we think that it's not good for neighboring. About the tension, the last months, yes, the tension is going down. So I think that by now the situation is better than some months ago, but this is something that we have to see in the future if it's a stabilized situation or is a situation for that moment. About Rafales. In general, Hellenic Air Force has a sophisticated system of training and choosing exactly the asset that we need, because always we know that there is budget constraints. We have to be very careful in that. So the last years, we all know that there was an economic crisis for about 10 years, decade in Greece. But after that, I hope that we are in better conditions. So we have a big program of modernization of our Air Force. First of all, it is the modernization, let's say, midlife update of our F-16s. We have a fleet of 154 F-16s, and 85 of them will become in Viper version. That means Block 70 with electronic radar. And it's a very capable aircraft. I'm a F-16 pilot, so I know all the history of F-16s from Block 30s, Block 50s, Block 52s, Block 52 advanced that my country acquired. We used to have French aircrafts like Mirage 2000 and Mirage 2000-5. That was a very, very, very capable aircraft. And I don't say that because I'm between a French audience, but because I just believe that. French weapons are very sophisticated, real capable, especially their missiles. And yes, I think that Rafale is a game changer in the Aegean because of two reasons. The first of all is that its radar is really capable and gives high situational awareness to our pilots. The second is that we combined this radar with Meteor missiles and Mika missiles. And both of them, kind of missiles, are very, very capable. And of course, with anti-ship missiles, Exocet, and Scalp, that is, let's say, strategic weapon for attack. All this makes our Air Force very capable in our region. As you understand, we already count about 200 first-class fighters, F-16s, Mirage 2000, DAS-5, and Rafales. And we are going to proceed F-35s, not to big numbers like our Italian friends, but we're going for 20 in the short period, and we're discussing for 20 more in the next period. Again, we are trying a lot for our training. We are trying a lot for synthetic training because, let's say, it's a cheap way for advanced training. And again, you can have the environment of the threats that you cannot have in the real training because you don't have all these threats that you have in a synthetic environment. I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you. Perfectly well. Thank you very much, General. There were a question about Egyptian air organization. If I mix several questions related to the crisis around your country, In the south, in the east, in Sudan, in Israel, Palestine, does that change something in the way you are monitoring your borders, your airspace, and the way you are doing things?
Okay. As you said, sir, we are in very hot area. All our borders in Egypt is very hot. I mean, from the east, we have the conflict between Israeli and Palestinian. We have the Red Sea. From the south, we have Sudan. And you know all the conflict now between the army and the other army in Sudan. We have in the west, we have Libya. And we have also the Mediterranean coastline. So we have to monitor all these. It's like 1,000 kilometers in borders. We have to monitor all day long and all night, of course. We have another obligation because of, as I said earlier, because we are the only port between us and Gaza, so we have to move all the humanitarian aids and medical aids to Gaza through Rafah port. So all aircrafts now is landing in Arish airport, which is very close to Rafah, and we move it by big cars to Rafah and try to get it inside Rafah, inside Gaza Strip. We also, maybe we heard about the attacks by the UAV carrying bombs launched from Yemen by Houthis and got launched and downed in Egyptian soil in Taba area. So we have to be alerted. We have to be monitored all the time because of all the threats around Egypt.
Thank you. I guess the time is now over. Thank you very much, all of you, for this overlook. And we have seen that the airspace control and the air forces behind it are key to monitor and to stabilize this very troubled area. And I guess we have now a very good, better look about what can happen in the future with the new technologies, the new tools, the new assets, and all this integration of all assets to fulfill your missions. Thank you very much, and merci à tous pour votre participation.